and welcome back to another episode of Come Over for Dinner. I'm so excited you're joining me today. I'm Bess Hawthorne. Today I have two very special guests, Dr. Joshua and Sara Appel. Joshua is the pastor at Trinity Reformed Church and a part-time fellow at New St. Andrews, where he teaches theology and gastronomy. His wife, Sara, is a youth choir director at Trinity Reformed Church and the assistant administrator at Whitehorse Hall, a homeschool cooperative. Welcome, Apples.
Thank you very much.
It's great to be here.
So tell us a little bit more about yourselves. I know you have 7 children ranging in age from 3 to 19, so you are very busy with all of your different jobs. What else can you tell us about yourselves?
Mm-hmm. Well, we love to cook and we love food. Our house is one that we often find ourselves eating and laughing together. We eat outside all summer long and love to cook together as well. I like to make my kids jealous often. If I'm making dinner or we've made dinner together and they're off doing their various things, we just text pictures to them and say, wish you were here.
And their heart really yearns to be back home.
Yes, but we do love cooking. And this year we've kind of even done a little bit of trying to get into gardening a little bit and seeing if we can manage to keep plants alive. And
Are you growing food like herbs and vegetables and that
vegetables
sort of thing?
And yes, lots of tomatoes. We'll see how that all turns out.
Those make the best BLTs. It's almost not worth having one unless it's a garden tomato.
That's true.
Tell me a little bit more about you. How long have you been the choir director and also worked for Whitehorse Hall?
I think the choir directing actually started when I think it's been 15 to 17 years ago that I first actually was conducting just the one choir we had at Trinity. And over the years, our little population of at the time, very tiny children grew up. Church-wide, we had very little people, and they all finally got old enough that we had enough that we could start the youth choir. And so we did. And then a few years after that, they were teenagers. So then we started a teen choir. And then a few years after that, we were able to start actually a fourth choir, a chamber choir. So then I got to hand off most of it to the fellow who's the music director at Trinity now, and he conducts 3 of the choirs, but I got to keep the youth choir. So it's been many years.
That's a lot of fun. And then the children never stop coming or growing. So
exactly.
It's just kind of a permanent job now.
Yep, it is. Yep.
You may never be let out of it.
Yep. I would be okay with that.
Sounds very fun. So, Joshua, tell us a little bit more about your gastronomy class at New St. Andrews. I have heard wonderful things about this. In fact, my daughter-in-law, when she and my son were first getting to know each other, I don't think they were married yet. I was hearing all about the different courses she had to prepare. Mm-hmm. Oh, it sounded amazing. And the fact that, they go and the class gets to try these courses. I'm like, can I sign up just for this class? Can I audit?
We've had that question
Can
a
I
lot.
be a taste tester? I mean, what do I have to do? Who do I have to pay?
So I've been asked to do it for the community, and I've pondered that. I hope sometime I'll be able to do that. Gastronomy was a funny thing how it got started. I was thinking about electives when I was teaching at NSA, and I thought to myself one day when I think I was walking down the hallway, I wonder if I could teach a class on food, because I just sort of had growing interest in that area. And my wife and I were newly married, and we were sort of making discoveries about cooking together. And we had the farmer's market, of course, that we would visit. And we were starting to just discover things. And I thought, I knew, of course, food was important in the Bible, but I didn't realize how much. And of course, that led to me looking for different literature on food and culture. I had an interest in philosophy as well. So kind of the class kind of formed around those interests: theology, philosophy, sociology of food. And it's morphed over the years, but my central desire was just to help students understand the role of food in the Bible, why it's so central in our relationship with God, but also central in our relationship with each other as well. And of course, the themes of hospitality that go with that, and also just learning about the notion of taste. What does it mean when the Bible says, taste and see that the Lord is good? And learning the facility of taste, or the learning to develop the faculty of taste as a form of judgment. We say someone has good taste, it means they have good judgment. And so, as Father Capon says in the Supper of the Lamb, that we need food's nourishment is its most temporary work. What we need forever is a sense of taste. We will always be called upon to taste and see how gracious the Lord is. So I tell students, as I've taught gastronomy, that one of the things my desire is in the class is that they would, through exercising their sense of taste and judgment and learning, never be in the presence of greatness and not know it. To be able to know and understand and realize when something is superb versus something that is just good. And so there's the study that goes along with that, understanding how that works, what taste is, what judgment is, appreciation is. And then out of that, during the last 5 recitations of the year, first 2 recitations, plan a menu, a 5-course menu. And then over the last 5 recitations of the term, they get a chance to every recitation prepare a course and then bring it to recitation. We all trade elements, and I give them a sheet to evaluate what their classmate has made, and then we just eat all together and we discuss and we talk and we enjoy the creativity and the skill that everyone else has developed along the way of realizing, just sort of waking up to what God has given us in the realm of food, the creativity and the skill of those who prepare it, and the enjoyment of making something and then offering it to someone else, and the conversation and fellowship that develops around that. So that's the nature of the class. Now, what I was not expecting was how many people over the years told me that class changed their life. Teaching theology on the other side, you kind of expect the theology class to change people's lives. And then hearing from so many people that it was that opportunity to cook and eat together and reflect on all the things that we had changed their life, changed the way that they lived, parties and dinner events and feeding one another, eating in each other's homes, kind of as over the years come out of that class, people doing that and realizing. I remember one young man in particular. I'm always happy when guys take the class. They learn that
I'm sure their future wives are too.
Yeah. They learn that they could actually cook. And
right.
I remember one young man who just had never made just about anything. His main course was beef stroganoff with homemade noodles, and he made the whole thing himself. And I could just, the pleasure on his face, that sharing with someone else and realizing he had made that. Mm-hmm. And it was good.
Mm-hmm. And he had not done it out of a box or
that's right.
a bag. Yep. It had been a work of love.
Yes, a work of love from scratch. And just seeing that pleasure, and then the realization that, there's a little bit of demystifying that happens, and recognizing through trial and error, I can do this. Mm-hmm. And that reward of that creativity, which is so much a part of being made in the image of God, is sort of, it comes to life. And it's always a pleasure to see that.
Well, and it's something you need for the rest of your life 3 times a day, plus snacks.
Very true.
So it's something that is a lifelong skill that you can only get better and better and better at, but you have to first be willing to jump in there and try it.
Yeah,
and realize you're going to make mistakes and just keep going.
Yes, absolutely.
Try new things and enjoy the process. And
sometimes some of the best things that have happened in gastronomy have been mistakes that people have made that wasn't exactly what they had prepared or planned to make, but in the process they had to learn to improvise. Mm-hmm. And the result was either very excellent and wonderful unexpectedly, or sometimes calamitous on the other side. And everyone enjoyed being able to talk about that. And
because they probably had to bring it anyway.
They did.
It was due on the due date. They don't want a zero, so have to show up with it. Oh, that sounds like a wonderful class. Have you ever thought about putting it into book form or a course that maybe could be offered online?
That's a great question. I have thought many times in sort of the back of my mind. I have a book percolating, which is, I think one of the things I do in gastronomy is just walk through with the students the history of food in the Bible from creation to consummation. And there's so much about food in the Bible that when you start paying attention to it, just bursts off the page. And I have aspirations to put down that sort of, I've been developing this set of lectures and kind of filling them out over the years. And I think if the Lord grants me the time and the energy to do it, I would love to put that down into a kind of a survey of what the Bible teaches about food with a number of the things that we've picked up through gastronomy. But I'm also this year going to be teaching at a newly formed art school in Birmingham, Alabama, and be doing a little bit of an extended version of gastronomy with them. They have a culinary program that's developing, and they want something on the arts and culinary arts, but related to theology. And so I'm going to do that and see how doing it in a little different venue works. And I still have all those requests percolating also in the back of my mind of people in our community who have asked for it. So we'll see what the Lord does in sort of putting that all together. Sure. I sure would love to do it and make it as available as possible.
Is the Alabama class a Zoom class?
It will be. Will involve me doing some Zoom classes with them during the term, but then I'll be going 1 week at the end of the term down to.
So you can taste.
Yes.
And see.
Right. Taste.
If it's good.
Exactly right. Yes. We'll have an opportunity to eat together, and I think that will be really special.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. Well, there's lots of phases of life. We've talked about that with hospitality. You know, it doesn't look the same at all points in time. You know, if you have a bunch of little tiny kids, including a baby, it may not be the time to have 50 people every week. Same thing with writing a book or creating a project like that. You know, when you have 7 children at home, it may be after they start to
That's right.
exit the house and you have a little more time on your hands.
That's what
and
I'm counting on.
You're twiddling at least a few fingers anyway.
Well, my wife reminded me that I got it wrong. It's not Birmingham, Alabama. It's Monroe, Louisiana.
Oh, okay. Well, that's where, is that Steve Wilkins?
So Steve Wilkins and Jared Ritchie, you may know, who's involved at NSA. He has actually been doing music stuff with the conservatory, and he's kind of the one overseeing the School of the Arts that they're starting up. It's a 2-year program down there.
Sarah, tell us a little bit about hospitality in your home and what it has looked like over the years, and especially with 7 children, how you do that when you have 9 people you're feeding already. How do you bring other people into that?
Good question. I will say that starting out, I was very intimidated about cooking. I think when we first got married, scrambled eggs was pretty much the top of my game out, and I could bake pizza. That was about all I had. And
those are both pretty good as well, though.
It is good. You just can't survive forever on only those. So when we first lived in a studio apartment on Friendship Square when we were first married, and Joshua was teaching at the college, we went ahead and followed one of our professor, Dr. Lightheart's examples, and having the students come to our home for recitations, because that was something that he always did. And we were very blessed by that in both of our educations. And so we started right out and had all the students come trooping over to our little studio apartment for their recitations. So we'd have sometimes 50 people, I think, through the apartment on a Friday for recitations, and then had some single guys over for lunch. And they were not too intimidating, just the single guys, because they were usually hungry for anything. So that was a good way to kind of wade in on the shallow end. We had a lot of college students early on, and I think, and also that is a very easy crowd to please. They're very grateful for pretty much anything, and so it was not so intimidating to have them. I do remember arriving at a point where it felt like we needed to start having some peers and families over, and that was a little bit more overwhelming and intimidating. But we tended to just find a meal that we could do, and we would kind of do it on repeat. Just whatever it was that we kind of got into. For a while, it was homemade red sauce and Italian sausage and spaghetti, and
that is a classic comfort food. And
it is,
everyone's
happy with it. And we had an Italian friend who taught us to make red sauce, so that part was homemade, and it was something that we could figure out the timing. And when we were, bouncing around, taking a toddler out or dealing with an infant and all the things, we could still pull it off. And I could estimate the timing. Right.
The longer it simmers, the better, according to the Italian grandmas.
It's true. It is so true. And it was a real mercy to us in that way. And then eventually we had a Mexican meal that we really liked, and various components of it from the Chevy's cookbook that we loved. And so we would just do that one. And that was we knew how to do it. We could go to the market and get the things we needed for it, and farmer's market. And so I think we tended to kind of land on one thing and do it over and over. But then at one point, Josh was reminding me this morning, we had college boys over for breakfast on Saturdays. And they would sometimes come and cook with us, which was fun. They would kind of participate in it with us, and we'd always included an apple pie for breakfast.
It was almost always the same.
Idea.
We did tater tots and scrambled eggs and sausage or bacon and apple pie.
Apple pie.
Oh,
That
that
was-
sounds delicious.
And we just served that over and over again. And they would eat as much as we could make. And we had usually 5 or 6 or 7 boys over.
They'd stay and talk for a long, long time. It was very fun.
And Brenner it's always good. I mean, especially college age guys.
Yep.
I like it, honestly, but it's so easy to make too. And whether it's apple pie or waffles or pancakes, or you can kind of do anything. And if people are jumping in and helping and talking, it makes it a great meal to serve when you have young people over.
Yeah.
For my kids growing up, a lot of times if their friends came over, they would be playing sports in the backyard and just, building up a really strong appetite. When they came in, it was time to make waffles, like every time. Somehow that became our thing.
Oh, wow.
We make waffles because
Oh,
you always
wow.
have ingredients for it. It's cheap. And if we happen to have bacon and eggs, well, great. But if not, we always had waffles.
Just waffles.
Yeah, that was
So
the thing.
great.
And
Fill
my
people
kids,
up.
Yeah, and my kids liked it better than pancakes. So it was like, well, you may just have to sit around the one waffle iron.
I was going
to
to say, did you have multiple waffle irons? That's
This was usually pretty casual, who they're talking, and I guess the teenagers were doing it.
Sure,
so,
that's
they're
so
eating.
fun.
But you can make stacks, and then I guess keep them hot in the oven. But anyway, back to your
no, that's
menu.
very fun. Yeah, it's very fun to that's another layer that we've learned over the years. I think is born not out of some virtuous intention on our part, but more that I usually didn't have everything done by the time people arrived for whatever it was. We have often included our guests in whatever components of the preparation, but I think that has actually been a real blessing and a real mercy, and we've come to see that as actually part of just welcoming people into our home. Our kitchen is really, really small in the house that we've lived in now for 15 years. And it is comical, the kinds of situations that can happen when, the guests arrive not quite done. And so we stuff about 3 more people in to chop this or that. And we're all talking, and I'm trying to get to the trash can, which is on the other side of the kitchen. And it just is, it can result in some very fun, but it definitely breaks the ice, and everyone can just visit, and they know that they're a part of the family already. So
Yes. Well, for some people, it really does help put them at ease. They really do enjoy doing something. They feel like, well, for one, it just gives them something to do with their hands instead of just stand there awkwardly. But for some people, too, it makes them feel like, well, I'm contributing in some way. I want to help. I want to I don't want to just be a guest.
That's right. And actually,
part of the family.
Exactly. Hospitality is, in the New Testament, the Greek word is the love of the stranger. And if you're loving the stranger, what you're doing is welcoming them into a family, right? Just as, and the church fathers wrote a lot on this, that the Lord has welcomed us to his table. We were strangers and aliens. He's welcomed us and made us family. So at our tables, we're to imitate that and to welcome people who are strangers and bring them in and welcome them into the family. And so that very thing, which is, being willing to receive the gifts that other people give, not just give. And I think sometimes hospitality is people feel like they need to do everything for the guests, but sometimes that is actually, it kind of distracts from the central reality, which is to welcome people, to, of course, provide something to welcome them, but also to receive the gifts that they offer in return as well. And so the fathers would often talk about that reciprocal nature of hospitality, that it's both a giving, but it's also a willingness to receive the gifts of others as well. And that builds that warmth of relationship and friendship that is often uniquely fostered around meals where people come and they contribute. And we've certainly discovered that kind of by, as Sarah mentioned, sort of not intentionally, but just sort of over time, like, wow, this really seems to go well. People really enjoy it. And even if we don't know these people very well, it's funny, by the time dinner gets put on the table, we are a lot closer to everyone knowing each other, and the conversation at dinner flows a lot better. And I think if I may just contribute something to this as well, which I'm interested in your thoughts, Sarah, about as well. But we've learned also that hospitality often isn't the planned meal. That sometimes it is, and about actually, setting a goal and saying, okay, on this day we're going to have these people over. But a lot of times hospitality is just welcoming people who need to be welcomed. And that can be something you haven't planned for. It's just someone needs to come in our lives with students. People have a broken up relationship, or they've had some difficulty or trouble and they just need to be comforted. They need to be talked to. So just bringing them over in the moment when it's necessary and being willing to just respond to that. And just think if you can imagine in your mind, you're just including them like a family member. We're bringing them in. So we don't have to do anything uniquely different or special in some way. We just bring them around, be with us. And I think with our children, that's something that over the years as they've grown up, we've really grown to appreciate. They bring people along around our table, and they also contribute and help to it. So as it's gotten more complex, yes, but also I think in some ways more enriched and lovely and wonderful. And it's wonderful to see the different people that come and end up at our table. And that's a really wonderful thing.
Right. That's a very good point. It doesn't have to be real formal or semi-formal or very planned to just open your door and say, oh, yeah, sure, come over. Whether your house is perfect or not perfect, or if you're just having Brenner for dinner.
Right.
We definitely have had many similar situations as our children were growing up. I remember many times around a table or not that friends would come over and all of a sudden it kind of turns into this little counseling session. You know, my husband, we have 4 boys and 1 girl. So I'm thinking there were many more times that he was involved in calling some of the friends to the mat, you know, like, okay, what are you messing with this girl for? No, leave this girl alone. Or other thoughts on college or whatever, you know, just kind of these spur of the moment, come over to our house and let's talk about your life. What's going on with you? Or out on the disc golf course, they play disc golf. In fact, just yesterday he went with his son and a brand new friend in town, you know, a guy who's starting NSA, freshman at NSA this year. And who knows what they talked about out there, you know, as they walked the 18 holes. But it's such a great opportunity to say, yeah, my door's open. And I'm sure you've had a lot of that with ministering to college students and having a youth choir and having children, 7 children, lots of friends.
There are a lot of friends. It's a small town.
Yes.
It is. And one of the things I think is useful about your distinction that you were just talking about is keeping always in your mind that hospitality is not just something that you do. It's something that you, as a Christian, are. You exude the hospitality of God to others. So that can take place on a golf green, or it can take place around your home. But it's important to think about the difference between hospitality then, biblically sort of conceived, and what we often think of in our culture is entertaining. And those are very different ideas. The Bible is all about hospitality and welcome. But entertaining is more like, for instance, the Roman convivium, something like the way that the Romans would eat. And that was always very much a sort of set of power relationships where people would give with the expectation that you would be returned. And so that's notion of reciprocity. I give to you. If you give to me, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. And Jesus in Luke 14 deliberately points out that is not the way the kingdom of God is. It's not about extending an invitation so that you will be invited in return. He says, in fact, that you're supposed to invite those who cannot return the invitation, because then you'll be like your Father in heaven, who gives out of the graciousness of his heart. And that sets biblical hospitality very much apart from the sort of secular notions of hospitality as a form of courting and receiving favor and having obligations or expectations that go along with it. Biblical hospitality is just freely given because we have been freely given to.
Right. So there's no keeping score. How would you say that the verse that you just brought up in the Bible, how would you, if we are having friends over to our home and we know in our mind, we're not keeping score, but we know that they can return the hospitality, and they most likely will. You know, we may have them over one Sunday, and another Sunday they may have us over. How does that tie into the verse you just mentioned?
Well, certainly the joy of biblical hospitality is giving because God has given to us freely. And if you're welcome in Christian hospitality is built around people who love to give to each other, right? Husbands and wives love to give to each other, and families that are built around that same principle love to give to each other. And so it's very, that's a great thing. We all have friends that we just love to be with because they're generous and wonderful people, and being with them is a treat. not because of expectations, but just because we love to give. And so the invitations are just effortless on either side. You don't sit around thinking, you just think about, when can we get together with those people? They're so much fun, so much, it overflows. That's, I think, very much in keeping with the biblical spirit. I think we just have to be, what Jesus has in mind there, though, also, is that we have to have a mind toward looking for people who need to know the generosity of God. And of course, that in biblical terms and in early church terms, that was, of course, Christians, the household of faith, people who came from far. There weren't hotels a lot of times, obviously, places to stay. And so you cared for people in your own home, welcomed them in, strangers. But it also means caring for the people who have, for whatever reason, are not able to perhaps return the kind of hospitality that you might be giving to them. And that is that attitude of delight to share with others and incorporate and welcome is something that I think is important, particularly in communities where it is very easy for us to be very much in each other's homes all the time, which is a good thing. But also to have an eye for how can we extend that blessing? How can we use the table that God has given us to be a tool for bringing people around the light of Christ to know, taste and see that the Lord is gracious and good, and have a vision for using our homes and our tables in that kind of way as well. So I think it's not an either or, it's a both and.
Mm-hmm. Like you said, just having your eye open and your heart ready.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And one of the categories we've already mentioned are the college kids. A lot of times they're not going to be able to invite your entire family back over, but they're away from their home, and inviting college kids over, that's a large opportunity in this community for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, y'all do cook together, you mentioned. When you prepare a menu now, I want you to tell me one of the favorite things you serve, and do you do this together, or is it mostly you who's preparing the meal? Tell me one of your top things that you would serve when you're having a bunch of people over.
We're thinking about our most favorite meals. And since it's summertime, one of our favorite summertime meals is something we learned from watching a Jamie Oliver show where he travels around Europe and then he just makes something inspired by the location that he is. And hilariously, this particular show, I don't remember where we first saw it, but then it showed up at the dollar store in like the set of DVDs, like 6 of them were for $1. So I bought several sets and passed them out to friends. Anyways, you can still find it on Amazon, but one of the episodes, he goes to Greece. So he's in Athens and he does this meal of just basic pork skewers, and he does a little chili sort of condiment with it, roasted chilies, and made tzatziki and a Greek salad to go with it. And it's a meal that works very nicely towards the end of summer when the cucumbers and the tomatoes are all in season. And we go to Costco and get a big giant chunk of feta, and you grill it out in the back. And it's just the smell of the grilled pork skewers, and serve it with pita bread and the tzatziki. It's one of our favorites, and it's very easy to make for a crowd. It's very involved because it's a lot of finger food, so everyone's it's not very tidy, and it's kind of a very participatory meal. Yes. So that's one of our favorites, and we're coming up on the season when we'll be doing that one a lot because it's very earthy and fun. And whenever we've done it with a lot of different people, there's something about the Mediterranean food that's just very...
Yes, it's very welcoming. It's very much a group meal.
Yes, very intimate.
And there's lots of prep. A lot of times slicing and dicing and all of that, crumbling the cheese. So there's lots of jobs you can give to people.
Yes, I've been known to send all the college boys out on the back deck to skewer all the skewers. Here's a huge pile. Go, guys.
Yes. Do you soak your skewers in water? Is that a trick, or do you just throw them on
I do,
there?
if I use the wooden ones. I have metal ones that I usually use, but whenever we've done it for a huge group, I buy the wooden ones and soak them.
I hadn't thought about buying metal ones. As odd as that sounds, I've only
I
ever
actually don't
used
know
wooden
how I
ones.
got them. Do you remember?
I don't, and they're very long. They're almost like
really long.
16 or 18 inches
Yeah.
long.
They're like daggers.
Yes, yes,
And-
very
mini swords.
wicked, but you can fit a lot on there, and they're a little easier to manage on the grill, I think.
One of the things that, just a cooking tip that goes along with doing pork skewers is you do really want to try to keep your pork tight on your skewers to make it like a solid stick of meat, because that when you're using high heat, which is what you really need to get that beautiful crispiness on the outside of the pork, you also don't want to dry it out, and you want to keep that moistness. So if you're getting really good, the kind of pork skewers that make people go crazy, it's you have to have the right amount of salt on the meat to get it beautifully salty, and then get that beautiful combination of the kind of crispy outsides but juicy and tender on the inside, and keeping the meat in a
Don't trim the
altogether.
fat.
Yes,
Keep
and
the fat.
don't trim the fat. Keep the fat. Keep your pieces roughly the same size, and then nicely packed on, and that gives you that ability to roll it on the grill and then get that beautiful combination. And then the other key is that time it so that, and this is the beauty of what we were just discussing. Everyone's out eating or sitting around. You can have hummus. People are eating a little bit to begin with, and then when the pork skewers roll off the grill, then everybody sits down and they're hot, and that combination of pita, hummus, and the roasted peppers, tzatziki, it's a transcendent experience. It's just amazing and wonderful.
I need to pause and wipe the drool off my mouth here. That sounds amazing and perfect for summertime. So you're pretty much just everything's ready, and when that pork comes off, that's the beginning of the meal.
That's what we try to do. We don't always achieve it, but if you can be flexible, and just make sure that you're, that's the last thing to do. Everything else is ready, because they go pretty quickly when you have a good hot fire. Just roll them off the grill and then put them on the plate, and everybody digs in, and it's so fun.
Before we move forward, a big thank you to the sponsors for supporting today's episode. Are you searching for hands-on activities to help your kids explore the practical side of science? Look no further than your kitchen. Inquisicook blends food science and culinary arts into an engaging program that puts delicious food on the family table. Let Inquisicook do the teaching with lesson videos, reliable recipes, and assessment tools that put students on track for success. Their online platform is easy to navigate and optimized for mobile, so the learning experience can move from the classroom to the kitchen without a hitch. Inquisicook turns curious students into intuitive cooks, not just recipe followers. Say goodbye to the tyranny of the ingredients list and say hello to utilizing what's in season, what's on sale, or what's in the fridge. Visit Inquisicook.com to view sample lessons, then check out the recipe gallery to see just how crave-worthy science can be. Today's culture shifts like sand, but New St. Andrews College is established on Christ, the immovable rock. The college is a premier institution that forges evangelical leaders who don't fear or hate the world. Guided by God's Word, equipped with the genius of classical liberal arts and God-honoring wisdom, with a faculty dedicated to academic rigor and to God's kingdom, New St. Andrews College offers an education that frees people. To find out more, visit nsa.edu. Well, it sounds really like you've said the whole meal. I mean, you've mentioned quite a few things. Do you serve anything else with it, though?
What we were talking about, if you want to make something, if you want to just like elevate it to another level, you can do grilled octopus at the same time.
Can you buy that in Moscow?
No, you can buy octopus in Moscow. The fish folks on Friday at the co-op carry octopus.
I did not know this information.
We have grilled octopus. I have to tell a little story here. Actually, you should tell the story about where we had it for the first time.
Oh, okay. So we first started looking for it because we had gone on a trip to Greece for our 15th anniversary, and we had octopus prepared in a way that I've not been able to replicate, but it was kind of overwhelming to us how good it was. And so we came home with a kind of desire to find octopus and figure out how to make it. So we got a Greek cookbook, and she had a recipe in there that's not like we had it in Greece, but we thought, well, maybe we'll try that. So for Easter one year, we special ordered the little octopus. We went to the fish folks, and our son, who at the time was, I don't know, 4 or 5, was completely enamored of the octopus, which is just it's frozen and it's just in a little wad in a bag. But he sat very carefully all the way home holding it in his lap, and then put it in a bowl and let it thaw in the fridge. And then, of course, you can take it out. It's a little 2-pound octopus, so it's not enormous, but it's, 18 inches high or so with all the tentacles. Then we had to cut it apart. And this recipe calls for just boiling it in some herbs and wine and olive oil. And then you finish it off on the grill and reduce the sauce and pour it over. And every time we served it, everyone who tasted it loved it. All the kids loved it, even though it was something that's actually fairly simple. You just have to get it ahead of time. And everyone loves it. Like, no one,
so unique.
So fun.
Everyone who sits down is probably saying, "I've never had
octopus. Yeah,
this is fun."
Yep, very, very. It's a real treat. So.
Many people are not sure they will like it, and then they have it, and they're like, "Wow, that is not what I was expecting." Which was our experience in Greece as well. We were like, "Wow, this is amazing." So,
So you weren't saying this tastes like chicken?
No.
But the texture is different. You think it's going to be very rubbery.
Sure.
But the boiling in the vinegar and the wine at the beginning really changes the texture. It becomes meaty and more solid, and then you flash it on the grill just to get that little charred quality. It's already cooked all the way through, but then what we often will do is just cut it up into little pieces. You throw some capers and parsley and a little bit of that drizzled reduced sauce, and then just put toothpicks out and just let people get a little piece, get a taste of it. If you're serving it with the meal that we talked about before, you can add it in addition to your pork skewers and put it on things, and it's just lovely, and the texture is just fantastic.
That is incredible.
It's really fun.
Close your eyes and you're in Greece.
Yep.
Do you serve any sort of dessert? Or is everyone pretty much stuffed at the end of this delicious meal?
That's a great question. Dessert is not my best thing. Although another thing we learned in Greece was a way of preparing, it's called katefi. It's the shredded phyllo dough. So you can buy the phyllo in its sheets, of course, but then you can also buy it in these little shreds. And when you do that, it's a much quicker process because you can make sort of little wads out of the phyllo, and then you put, I forget all of the things, but it's basically a sort of baklava type ingredient. So you have honey and butter and then nuts and
cinnamon
pistachios
and
yes, warm spices. Kind of, and you just sort of make a little bird's nest out of it, and it actually goes really fast. So instead of the time to layer all of the things for baklava, it's kind of a quick version, and that has been
amazing.
That's a real favorite.
Do you buy your phyllo dough shredded already?
Yes, you can buy it that way. There's a Middle Eastern store in Pullman that is one of the places you can get it.
I've never seen that. I've made baklava. My mother had a recipe growing up. She was from Florida, and I believe that they had some population there.
Okay.
Maybe they were from Greece, maybe a Greek pastry shop. But anyway, she had baklava growing up, and so she loved it, and I think created her own recipe.
Oh, neat.
Maybe from various sources, but we have this certain one that she made growing up, which is actually a really fun make-ahead if you want to do a make-ahead dessert.
Yes.
And I don't know if yours is the shredded the shredded puff or phyllo. The shredded thing. I've never seen. I've only seen the sheet. So that is a fun thing to know about.
It's pretty easy. I don't remember if I've tried making it very far in advance because it's so quick to put together that.
So it doesn't have to soak like a honey syrup soak. I'm pretty sure the baklava I make, it says overnight, but could be wrong.
Yeah, no, that would be, it's a more intensive process. We actually, you could call it, if you can't think of the name, it's hairballs is what Joshua started calling them when we were in Greece.
I called them Grecian hairballs. And they were amazing.
But they loved them.
I think they taste better than what I would imagine a hairball tasting.
Not the best name.
Not the best name, but maybe that'll keep people from eating too many, so there's at least a few left over.
There you go.
Here's some Grecian hairballs.
I could never remember katefi, so I just called them hairballs because I just knew that's what they were, and everywhere I went, I wanted to eat them. So that it was fun.
As long as when the waiter comes up, you're not ordering hairballs
right.
on accident. So for this menu, is it a last minute prep where you're kind of cutting things that day, or is there anything you can do ahead of time to speed up the process?
The pork you can definitely do at least a day ahead if you cut up the pieces and then go ahead and throw the marinade on it. It doesn't have to marinate that long, but you can do it ahead, which is kind of nice.
Mm-hmm.
We've done that when we've done it for Easter or something that was like a much larger group or a lot of other things going on. The salad, of course, kind of has to be done right then. But, Jamie Oliver, his method of chopping things is very rough and tumble and not too precise. So we've tried to follow that.
Just go for it.
Just go for it and
Dive in
give it a rough chop, I think is what he would say.
Yeah.
So
Once you get all the vegetables in a bowl, you just put a nice big old brick of feta cheese on the top and break it up, and then pour olive oil and then red wine vinegar and salt and pepper. And it's amazing. Like, you don't have to, if you have good vegetables, good tomatoes, you don't have to do much in terms of actually preparing them. They're just
good olive oil.
Good olive oil.
Do you have a recommendation?
I do.
Tell me.
I do. My favorite olive oil. Oh man.
For dressings, it matters.
It really does.
If you're sauteing or something like that, but you might could get by with something. But for a dressing, if you're just drizzling it and that's your main dressing, you've got to have something good.
You got to have something good. Oil and salt are two of the great staples of the kitchen, and we love them both and have many different varieties. I think my favorite olive oil is named Atlas, and it's from Morocco. And it's not quite as spicy with as much bite as a Greek or Italian olive oil has. It's very buttery. It has a little bit of spice at the end, but it is just such a beautiful oil. It's very, very high in polyphenols too. So it's like the kind of olive oil that has the very best for you to eat, apparently. But it is, you can buy it. If you look it up, you can find it on Amazon, and I usually buy it in a 3-liter container, and that lasts, usually about 6 months. And we use that just for the special things like dressings, putting olive oil on things, as a specialty olive oil when it matters, like you say.
What about salt?
Oh my!
Any top recommends? I know you said you have a lot, so maybe it's hard to.
Well, here's the
that.
staple. The staple in our kitchen is a finely ground Himalayan pink salt from the San Francisco Salt Company, and I found their salt to be very consistent. It's if you're used to using kosher salt, which I'm very fond of, but it doesn't have the good mineral content, right. And so I still use often kosher salt when I'm salting meat. Steak in particular, because it's very it's consistent saltiness, and I know how to judge it so that I get the right amount on it. But for all cooking purposes, we really love the pink Himalayan salt. It's not as salty as kosher salt is, or it doesn't taste as salty. And it's just beautifully consistent. It's a wonderful flavor. Yeah, the San Francisco Salt Company makes a lot of different flavored salts too that go with you. So if you want to expand into smoked salt or bacon flavored salt, or there's a wonderful recipe. While we're on the topic of salt, is one of our favorites is rosemary salt. Oh, and rosemary salt is actually, you can make it yourself. There's I think we first saw on YouTube a fellow making it, and you just take salt and put it in a food processor, and then you add rosemary and sage and lemon zest, and then you just give it a good blitz, and you just create that so it turns it a little bit green. It's got this little beautiful slight green color, but it is so fresh, and it keeps for about 2 weeks-ish if you keep it in the fridge. And that is for vegetables or meats or various things. It is an absolutely wonderful experience. I couldn't believe it when I first made it. I was like, wow, this is a game changer. It's really wonderful.
That sounds incredible. I need to go do that. I mean, that would be $10 to buy that in the store. Yes. Yeah. And they probably have something that's like a preservative in there, which makes the taste go down. But if you made it fresh and used it fresh, oh, that sounds amazing.
It's wonderful.
Do you have any, just as a quick side note, do you have any thoughts on Diamond kosher versus Morton kosher? Because Morton is in all the stores and it's so much cheaper to buy. Fine Diamond is harder and it's more expensive, but the chefs use Diamond, and Ina Garten only uses Diamond. So I can't make up my mind.
Yeah, well, so it's funny you bring this up, because one of the books that I've been starting this summer, which I think I'm going to be using in gastronomy next year, is a book called Salt, Fat, acid and heat.
Which familiar? I listen to on audio and bought, and need to. One of my goals this summer is to pour through that and read it, not just because when I was listening to it on audio,
right,
I kept stopping and making notes on my phone.
Sure.
Yes.
Yes.
Like, okay, I have to get this book in person.
Yes.
And
someone already wrote it all down for me.
Yes.
Well, it's by Samin Nosrat, and the book is fantastic. It's on Audible as well. There's also a video series of each 4 on Netflix as well, I believe, which is wonderful to watch. But she notes in that book that the difference between Diamond and Morton is the density of the salt. And so kosher, we have used almost exclusively Morton kosher salt. But she recommends, I thought that fascinating as I was listening to it, that she really recommends using Diamond salt because of its less dense quality. It gives you more control over what you salt. I've never tried it before, so it's something that I've never done before. But I think the key to kosher salt is just the density of its crystals are not so strong. So you get a bigger flake with salinity that's not quite as intense as obviously like a table salt or something like that, which gives you that ability, particularly in meat, to visually see how salted something is. And I've learned over the years of cooking meats that I think I got this off of what's the book? I think it was I'm not going to remember the title now, but I remember one writer writing about salting with her grandfather. They'd go down and buy a 2-inch ribeye steak at the butcher and bring it home. And her grandfather taught her. That is it. Ruth Reichel. Thank you. I think Tender at the Bone is the name of the book.
Yes. And she was the editor of Gourmet for years.
Yes.
And wrote numerous books.
Right. But she said that her grandfather taught her that using kosher salt, you should salt it until it feels to you like you have used too much. Like it looks to you like it's going to be too salty. Then it'll be perfect. And over the years, I found that to be true. That's a great piece of guidance that when you think you have enough, just a touch more, and it's perfect.
Okay. Yeah. Good thoughts. And definitely a high recommend is salt, fat, acid, heat, because she goes into a lot of that there.
That's right.
I do need to order the Diamond and just compare.
Yes.
If the flavor is different, because I've used Morton for so long, I feel like, well, if you just use more of kosher or if you use more Diamond, then why can't I just use a little less Morton? And it's the same thing.
It's true. I think.
But is the taste different?
I don't think the taste is different. I do think the texture is different and the concentration is different. So it gives you maybe a little bit more in terms of not just the less crystals, but actually being able to distribute them better because it's finer. And so
that makes sense.
At least that's how I understood her to be saying the differences. And that I think is something that I would love to try to experiment with as well and see if it makes a difference.
Okay. Well, little rabbit trail there, but since I had him on the topic, I had to find out the answer to this mystery. Do you have any prep tips that you would offer when you're having people into your home? What is the way you prepare your home? Maybe shopping, cleaning, that sort of thing.
We always roll with it. But anyways, that's one
that's
thing.
That's the best attitude to have.
Comes to the point where you just let it go.
Just go for it and let everything else go. Whatever's not done.
Whatever's not done, you just gotta go with it. I was thinking through. I feel like I've thought through our Easter celebration quite a bit because that's something that we've done each year. Kind of tried to raise the bar a little bit, and we have over the years had a pretty wide age range at Easter. And one of the things that I just found to be just like, it just helped was when we had tiny kid tables, I always covered them with brown paper and put a brand new set of markers in a cup in the middle of the table or with kind of part of their flower arrangements, was cups of markers because, those longer, more elaborate meals, the adults are happy to sit and visit for longer periods of time, but it's hard to keep the little people there, especially if you're doing multiple courses, which we have done that over the years, often done multiple courses spread out over a longer period of time. So if I wanted to entice the littles to stay at the table longer, I'd give them some artwork to do. And that actually even up into sometimes the teenagers liked it too, actually.
Yes, and they could show their artistic work to their friends.
To their friends, exactly. So that's just one little side tip. And then probably everybody knows this, but you can put Sharpies on glass. You can use a Sharpie on glass so long as you use rubbing alcohol to take it off. And you can even get it off after you've run it through the dishwasher. So it's for all wine glasses and water glasses, especially if it's going to be over a longer period of time. We found it. We can put, I also, again, a bouquet of colorful Sharpie markers. It's one of my favorite things. And so everyone writes their name on their glass, and it's just easy to keep track of who's or who's.
I don't think I did know that, actually.
Okay.
At least if I've seen that, I probably thought it was wet erase or something, you know.
Well, yeah, and then there's other people
Sharpie.
sell like special markers to do it, but you can just use a normal Sharpie and then you
just take it off with alcohol.
Rubbing alcohol. Yep.
That's so easy.
So yeah, it kind of keeps it's festive.
And we have on Easter. One of the things over the years for us has been learning how to make a bigger deal out of Easter that sort of compares with our Christmas celebration. Our goal was to sort of have our kids' two greatest times of the year be Christmas and Easter. And so we realized we had a lot of work to do with Easter. And so over the years, just started working with having Easter be just a festal day. So come home from church and start a feast at 1 PM and then do 6 or 7 courses until like 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And then have in between the courses, have Easter egg hunts and games and singing and various different things, all the sorts of celebratory things that one might do. Sometimes even naps in the afternoon because the
got to pace yourself.
The pacing of it was pretty intense. It was so you had to really work at it. Are the
children taking naps or are you taking naps?
Mostly the adults.
Mostly the adults. Yes, there are people.
Kids were off flying on a sugar high.
Yep,
That's true.
That is true. But anyway, that a lot of those tips, especially the one about writing your names on your glasses when you have wine over a long course of period of a day, and people have the cups everywhere, it really helps people be able to find them and keep track of them. And
I've been at events where it just, by the time people leave, there's triple the number of water bottles or cups or something that the people that were there, because they just had to keep going and getting something new because they didn't know where they set their glass or if it was theirs or maybe they were picking up somebody else's. So this is a great tip.
Yeah.
I always put Sharpies out for plastic, like if we ever had water bottles.
Right.
Of course, it won't work if it's wet, you know. So sometimes the trick I've had for that ahead of time, if it's a water bottle and a Sharpie, was just to do a number or draw a picture, and then they know,
and then it's already there.
I have the heart or the smiley face or the number, you know, whatever.
That's a good thought, especially if you're putting them in a cooler with ice. Yeah,
because once it's with ice. Yep. Which, when I said the wet erase, that wouldn't work on anything that had condensation, maybe a glass of wine. So, but wet erase would not be a really great option.
Yeah.
As soon as it has condensation or gets wet. So
you can also use dry erase, but that's the other problem is that fingers
it wipes off
too as well. So,
okay, well, fabulous tip.
One other little random tip was something we learned back in our spaghetti days was. This was with college students, but I think it probably applies to families as well. Sometimes having more people was better than having fewer. We had a few times where we had 2 college students over, and then we were in the middle of little kids. And so if I was trying to finish dinner and he had to take a toddler and have a conversation in the other room or something, then they're just left sitting with each other, and it could get pretty awkward pretty fast. Whereas we discovered if we had 6 of them or 8 of them, the conversation flowed no matter whether we didn't have to necessarily be there. Of course, you can land on an awkward group every once in a while. It always happens. But in general, it seemed that actually having more people was just more comfortable for everyone. Of course, I'm sure you can get to a point where it's too many, but it was a little weird principle that we stumbled on accidentally and realized it just seemed to kind of smooth things out and made it so that
they had their own little dinner party going, even if you had to be in the kitchen or dealing with a child, like you said. That's a great tip.
Yeah. So depending on the ages of the people, that can help.
For sure. What is one way that you make people feel welcome when they come into your home? Or you can mention lots of ways. So give us some of your best advice.
Hand them something to chop and a glass of wine.
There you go. That pretty much is
That's
it.
pretty much
They
it.
feel welcome right away.
And then the 3-year-old decides to give him a tour of her bedroom.
Yes. That wasn't quite on the list of places to
Right.
tour.
It was not the highest priority.
At least it's a 3-year-old's bedroom and she's not giving a tour of your bedroom.
Hopefully.
You never know.
You never
One
know.
never knows with 3-year-olds.
This is true.
There was someone that was on here recently that was saying that their 3-year-old, I think it was a 3-year-old, loved going and opening all the doors, whatever closet doors and bedroom doors, just look, this is my home. Like, wow, that's terrifying.
There are no secret spaces.
Right.
Yes, we've laughed of the number of times. I think I told this story earlier that our bedroom door is right across from the bathroom, and there is only one bathroom. There's the main bath, and our bedroom is right there. And so I have always tried over the years to make sure that our door stays closed when we're having company, because it is often the landing spot for any laundry baskets that didn't get folded or whatever. There are lots of things land in there. And it has been just sort of proverbially true that by the end of the evening, when everyone is left and I come back around the corner, that door is open. I have no idea how long it's been open. Don't know why anyone was in there, but oh well.
Maybe a kid ran in to grab something. Of course, they didn't remember to close
Didn't close it. Yep.
Like, how many people saw that?
How many people saw that?
Maybe none. Maybe everyone.
Maybe everyone. Probably everyone. I'm just going to assume everyone.
Right.
Did.
Good way to stay humble.
It is.
It is. And I think over the years with welcoming people into our home, at first we were like, everything has to be just right. Mm-hmm. And as time went on, we realized you can't actually minister to real people real time and have everything just that way. So, and then you start realizing, actually, it's not to say that you don't try to have your place ready for people. They appreciate that, of course. But I think there is something that we learned about people when they see that your house isn't immaculate, and yet you are welcoming them anyway. That, like we were talking about before, makes them recognize it, that you're treating them with intention and with care, and they're more important. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't lead to them thinking less of you or thinking that somehow, what you think, which is like, why would anybody want to come over and be here when I've got laundry baskets everywhere and the kids are running around doing this and that. And we've discovered that actually we've had some of our best, people come over, I need to talk to you. Okay, come on over. Then put the kids and threaten them with an inch. No, just
don't come in.
Put them in the house. We'll go sit out on the back porch, and there might be, baseball chaos stuff everywhere, and just have the conversation that needs to be had. And people know that if they know that you're willing to just have them over and welcome you into their life the way that your life is, that teaches them that they're special and that you are paying attention to them. And it is an exercise of hospitality. So we've learned to be more comfortable with that over the years of recognizing that, yes, we should try to keep our house welcoming to people, but at the same time, we have to be willing to receive whatever the Lord drops in our lap. And that's more important than having everything just right.
Mm-hmm. Which honestly, if you're coming into that environment, it naturally would feel like you're just welcome into wherever the family's at versus it being an event,
right,
or something you have to sit up a little taller for and shoulders back. And I have, which fork do I use? And,
right.
Not that there's not a fun time for something more formal, but it more informal would make people, especially if they're not used to that environment, used to coming into a family dinner, for instance, would make them feel like they're just a little more off, not having to put on a presentation. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, that's true.
So great tips. You have a tip about the bathroom. If you have 2 bathrooms that I found fascinating. I heard it recently and I have never heard this before. And it has not been mentioned on the podcast. So I do want you to share it.
Okay. This is not my original to me. This was my boarding mother when I was in college. She would get the guest bathroom, the bathroom that the company would be using when someone came for dinner, all cleaned and ready, and then light a candle in it. And once the candle was lit, that was the signal to the children or the family members that they needed to go use the family bathroom, which might be the one up in, by the bedrooms or wherever downstairs, so that the the guest bathroom could be preserved in the state that
the mother thought it was in.
Right. Yes. So once the candle was lit, that was the signal. So, and lighting a candle for having guests over is perfectly normal. So nothing looked weird. And hopefully the children caught the signal and remembered that if the candle was on, they were supposed to go use the other bathroom.
That is the most genius idea I've ever heard in my life. And I wish so much that I'd had it raising children, because you can have a perfectly clean bathroom and then 7 people troop through it. And let's hope one of them's not a potty trainer. And then it looks by the end that you haven't done anything.
You haven't done anything. Yep.
And the hand towel is completely soggy and water's everywhere.
Oh my goodness, the shower curtain is open. That was something we always had. I don't know. I still have never actually figured out which of my children, but some of my children are nervous about the shower curtain being closed. And it's a very tiny bathroom. So the shower curtain is very near you when it's closed, when you're sitting on the toilet. And that was another one of those things. Like every time we'd have company and I'd close the shower curtain, and then I would come back at the end of the evening and the shower curtain would be open, no matter the state of the bathtub. And
they liked seeing their toys and their special shampoo and making sure it was all there.
Yes. Didn't want to make sure everything was missing and there was no one hiding behind the curtain, I think is part of their issue. But it was a funny thing. And then of course that was at night and they were already in bed. And so then I would think, I need to talk to them. And the next time we'd have company, I'd close the shower curtain and forget to say anything. And so it was a much repeated scenario.
Well, the candle idea is just perfect. I love it. And I think that would be one if, again, you'd have to have more than one bathroom. But if you have little kids, I often told my kids, because we did have 2 bathrooms, I often told my kids, company's here, feel free to use our master bathroom but my thought is just, you don't want so much congestion. You don't want 20 people trying to use one bathroom. My kids, you go back to my bedroom, try to go to my bedroom to use the bathroom. But I never thought about the candle and thinking now, don't go in there like you're forbidden. Preserve. I always just tried to do some kind of, what do they call that when you're trying to?
Traffic control.
Traffic control and putting out multiple hand towels and dashing in there right before they came to make sure the one hand towel I'd hang up wasn't completely soggy. Yep. So fabulous tips. What are some of your must-have kitchen items, and where can we find them?
We really, really, really love our global knives.
Ooh, I like knife recommendations.
I know everyone has, people who have their favorites. It's their favorite. So I definitely would not try to persuade someone who's a Wusthof fan that they must try global. But if you don't know what to look for, we've loved our global knives. They've been. And really, we have a set, or probably 4, 5, but the 2 chef knives are the ones that we use all the time, and they just get used, washed, washed all the time. So they are quite an investment, but we've had them now for 20 years.
They'll last forever. Where do you purchase them?
I think you can get them on Amazon as well as restaurant stores like Williams-Sonoma or Sur La Table or any of those.
Okay.
And the second piece that we were talking about this earlier, like what would we recommend? Well, there's really only 2 things. And it's funny because when we got married, we registered for a lot of things, which we didn't get many of them. And so we had this kind of hodgepodge of pots and pans. Why we still have actually the big pot that I used when I was in seminary. And it's still our main pot. 20 some years later. But the one thing that we bought early in our marriage, which we have used so many times, we had no idea when we bought it that it was going to be as special and important as it was.
I thought it was a little ridiculous that we got it. Joshua was the one who insisted that it was a good deal, and I thought he was a little crazy, but I'm glad he did.
He's turned out to be right.
Yep.
And we bought it like not very long after we were married at a discount mall store in Denver where her folks live. We were visiting and we went to the store and we saw it there, and it was a 13-quart Le Creuset Dutch oven. And I think it's the largest size Le Creuset that they make.
I think it might be
13 quarts.
13
That's
quarts.
That's incredible.
It's white, and we call it Moby Dick. And
perfect name.
The Great White Pot.
Yeah, the Great White Pot. And we have used that for I can't even tell you. We use it for so many things because, of course, it can be on the stovetop. It goes in the oven. It has a very heavy lid, so you can transport it well. You can make a big batch of butter chicken and take it with you or serve from it. And, of course, you can do all the things related to having it on the stovetop, sauteing and frying, and you can deep fry in it. You can bake in it. You can, you have the ability to do braising in it and all of the things. So it really is such a multi-dimensional tool, and it's so large that you can use it for everything. And we found, we thought, I think back in the day, that's just so large. That was Sarah's reservation. So large. We're going to ever use that. And, our advice to newly married couples is go big or go home. Like just do it.
Preparing for the future.
Don't mess around with a 3-quart something or other.
You won't use it later on.
No, you don't.
Especially when you start feeding teenagers.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was the reason we ended up getting it was at this at an outlet mall. It was a second, and then they had all of their seconds were on sale, marked down like another 40% or something. It was something ridiculous.
That's an amazing
so
price.
it was.
I think we got it for like $200 and some odd.
Oh,
and if you look at them now, was it less than that?
Less than that.
It was less than that. I think they're like close between $700 and $900 now.
I would imagine full price.
Crazy.
Full price, they are that way.
Wow.
So it is, if you can find it, a used one or somewhere.
Go to outlet stores.
Yep.
That's a great idea. But things like that, if you invest in something up front that is a lot higher quality, you're going to have it forever. I did the wrong thing when we first got married and had these really cheap, like a whole set for $100 type. I'm sure it was Teflon or, something like that where I replaced it 3 times before finally realizing this is terrible. Why do I keep doing this? I had that thought years later. By the time I replaced something 3 times, I could have just invested, saved up or whatever, asked for Christmas or wedding or whatever, money, put towards something that would last forever and enjoy using it. This other stuff didn't cook well. And,
That's right.
If it was coated with something, of course, it came off and it was just
and
not
you just
even
end up throwing
worth
it all away.
Yes, you end up throwing it all away and starting over. So up front, and a lot of people do register for nice things for their wedding. But even if you don't get some of the things you want, you can kind of keep it on your wish list for later down the road.
We've actually found that you don't really need a whole lot of pots and pans. Having a good stock pot and a Dutch oven, and then we have 2 rather large cast iron.
We only had one for a really long time.
That's right. One was about
to 12 inch.
12 inch. And
So it's also rather large, but it kind of does everything.
Yeah, and they had the raised edges, so you could do a lot of things in it. And then just one small fry pan for cooking eggs, which is basically what we have. That's the only one we have that's small. Other than that, we've gotten along over the years. That really has been most of what we've done, most of our cooking with the majority of the things.
Right. A lot of times if you invest in a set, of course, it's a lot more expensive, but also you end up not using a lot of those sizes. Or there's some sizes that are so similar, you could just go with one, like
That's
say
right.
a saucepan. So yeah,
That's
just
true.
knowing a few pieces that were really the top ones to invest in. Like you mentioned with the knives, it's wonderful to have a whole set, but you can really start with a chef's knife.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And maybe another smaller knife and then go from there. Because, that's what I use all the time is my chef's
Your
knife.
chef's knife.
That's what I grab the majority of the time. And you can use that for even some of the smaller jobs. So
That's right.
Lots of the smaller jobs.
lots of the smaller jobs.
Yeah.
Do you have a story from all of your years of hospitality? Has anything ever gone awry? Not with 7
Besides
children
shower
in the home.
You should talk about pizza.
Oh, we did have a time where
By the way, she makes amazing pizza. It's one of those things that she's perfected over the years of making. We have every Friday we do pizza movie night with the kids after school's done. We make pizza and we all watch a movie together. And Sarah has for many years worked and perfected and come to the place where her pizza is truly transcendental. It's an amazing experience. And so we've loved
Tell me
pizza.
you have a recipe to share.
My crust is actually just a Williams-Sonoma cookbook that we got when we were first married. But it's just a real basic. It's not a long, what's the right word? It's not an aged or slow ferment. It's just a regular yeast dough. But
we've learned more.
Very reliable.
Yeah, more techniques over the years. But that is, I think, one that she hit it right from the beginning. She's, of course, I think, developed the sort of tactile ability to make it to take that basic recipe and turn it into something that is quite remarkable in terms of its crust and the nap and so forth. But anyway, we love pizza. We love experimenting with pizza. We love trying lots of different things, and that's the basis sort of this story.
It was just a family that I think, I can't remember for sure, but I think we knew that they weren't necessarily very adventurous. So we kind of decided, like, let's just keep it simple, very informal, friendly. Let's just do pizza. That'll be fun. Like, we'll just do. And so we did do, I remember that we did one or two of the pizzas were cheese pizzas because they had little kids. And so just keeping it very approachable and fun and like nothing fussy or like too fancy or whatever. And then we probably did do a couple of, some of our more.
I remember, goat cheese and fig jam and gorgonzola and caramelized onions.
Yes,
I remember
right.
that.
Yeah. So we some other things that we thought were fun, but we tried to keep it. And the adults in the party would only eat the cheese pizza.
Oh, no.
And it was just, I don't know, it was a funny moment because it was good to realize, like, even though our whole intention was to try to actually not be something that would be off-putting or not friendly, it backfired, and it was very humbling to kind of we were actually, this is exactly what we were trying not to do, and yet we totally biffed it. So
did you have enough cheese pizza?
I don't even remember.
For the kids and the adults?
We had the conversation after. I remember realizing, okay, so not everybody likes gorgonzola cheese and fig jam and onions and so forth. So
it's good to just have options and back it off. And if you don't know, don't go too crazy.
Do you ever let people build their own? Have y'all ever done that
We have done that with college students sometimes, actually. That is a fun party. And actually with little kids, that's another thing that obviously that gets really wild and hairy,
right?
But it's fun. Take the little parchment paper and write their name on the corner, and then they can roll out their own little dough on their parchment paper. Yeah.
And also, if you get a good pizza stone, that's another thing that if you like pizza and you don't have a pizza stone or don't have two of them, one above and one below, that's a great way to sort of elevate your pizza. But summertime, it's really fun to do it out on the grill, to get a good pizza stone, and then get I have a grill smoker that I can do indirect heat with, and I just get it up real hot, 600-700 degrees, and then we just grill the pizzas, and they come off much faster that way. And then you don't heat up the kitchen in the summertime and get everybody hot. And the pizza just has this amazing flavor that comes from the grill, even though you're not necessarily smoking or anything like that. It just has a really great texture and taste as well. And that's fun to do because you can be all outside sitting on the deck and just, of course, now the big rage is all these pizza ovens that you can put out on your deck, and you can use the propane for, and I'm sure those work really well too. But that's a really fun way to do pizza for, more people, where you can make the event of each pizza kind of coming off the grill and people trying them, and over a course of time just really is a fun hospitality trick that we've enjoyed over the summer.
Yeah. That sounds like y'all eat really well at your house.
It's kind of a hilarious proverb at our house that I still don't really think about food very much. And so Joshua does ask me what's for dinner most days, just to remind me that dinner is coming still again.
We're like, oh no, not again already.
But at the same time, when I'm off and she'll say, I can tell by the answer that's coming that I call her and she has had a full day and hasn't really been thinking about dinner. So I'll just pick up something on the way home, which I have discovered that my job as a man in the 21st century is to to go out and get the wildebeest and bring it home, which is to
hunter-gatherer, food provider.
Yes.
Maybe it's at Safeway.
Yes, prowl the meat aisle and bring home whatever, and grill it. And so early on in our marriage, we started cooking together, and one of our favorite things to do was take a Saturday, go to the market, see what's available, plan what we're going to make, and then spend the afternoon, open a bottle of wine, spend the afternoon cooking together, and then have our friends come around, and then just spend the evening eating together. And so that was early on. And as we've gotten older, we really do love cooking together and enjoy the process. And now that we have kids and so forth, it is nice to be able to trade that responsibility back and forth, where she might be had a full day with the kids doing all kinds of things, and I can just get the stuff, come home and throw some things on the grill. We can make dinner. I can be the lead force in getting dinner ready that particular evening. And then some evenings she can do it. And then other evenings when we have more time, we can plan it together and just enjoy the process, include our kids. And as they've gotten older, that's a really fun thing to see them learning and enjoying. And as they've gotten older, their tastes have developed. They have really learned to. It used to be that certain things Sarah and I could get away eating by ourselves. Not anymore.
They like that gorgonzola pizza, as it turns out.
Yep. All of it.
Yes, which is so fun.
Yeah, you don't have too many leftovers of the things you thought you might have leftovers of.
That's true.
Well, dinner does come around every single night. So all of the different ideas and advice, it's welcome. Because it's a joy, but also a struggle sometimes.
Yes, indeed.
That's true.
Well, thank you both for coming on. I really appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedule to join me.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, it's been a delight.
Well, I can't wait to post these recipes. Look at comeoverfordinner.com, and they will be there under the index. Will be the title of the recipe, but they also have their own blog post under recipes. There will also be the items they mentioned on the shop page, so you can find them if you're interested. Until next time, bye for now.